Pierre, LeBrun, how you doing?
All right.
You're off the charts. the red
I'm
arm.
I'm refreshed.
Yeah, the red arm is like totally hot here on that last all right. Where are you?
Well, good. I'm in my Chicago hotel room after a day at the player tour.
Oh, yeah, the media tour,
And,
right.
I was transcribing some notes for a notebook, and it was a good day. It was fun catching up with a lot of the players. This is an amazing event because the players, like us, I guess, are coming off, refreshed from a summer off, and they're just in a better frame of mind than when you get them in the middle of a grind of a season, right? They're just a little more open-minded about thinking long and hard about your questions and giving you a thoughtful answer. I mean, for the most part, I think we're lucky in this sport. The NHL players are so much better to deal with, I think, than a lot of athletes from other sports at times. But this event in particular, all these star players come here with a great attitude because the event is really for them because they get to basically take care of business in 48 hours, what would otherwise take them weeks at a time in terms of different photo shoots and interviews and all this stuff, right? They get to do it all, one-stop shopping over 2 days. So they're really in a good mood when they come here.
Michael Farber is there, I believe. Have you seen Michael?
He is for NBC, yeah. In fact, Michael and I caught up today. It was nice seeing the legendary Hall of Famer,
who is with us every Monday now at 4:35 on TSN 690. So who did you get a chance to talk to, and what was revealed?
So today we did. So we had an athletic stop. So myself, Craig Custance, Scott Burnside, Eric Duhacek, and we chatted with Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Max Domi.
All right, let me stop you there. Let me stop you at Max Domi. What can you tell us?
Well, Craig Custance monopolized him for the most part for his podcast, although I got in a couple of questions on Max after that. But it was interesting. Make sure to listen to Craig's podcast when it airs sometime next week because Max detailed how he tweaked his off-season workout regimen, started doing work I think with a former Olympian or a track specialist, really hardcore running in the hope of getting more out of his last 15, 20 seconds of his shift energy-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Really detailed observations about the kind of work that he put in this summer in terms of, he hopes that that's going to pay off on the ice. So it's pretty interesting. Also interesting to hear how detailed he is and focused on his diet, what he eats. He said he tried to go vegan, but it was affecting his energy levels, so very selective now in the meats that he eats. But just really interesting to hear, these guys are fine-tuned machines, what they do to get ready for a season.
Yeah, I don't. You're nodding, Gallo. You want to add to this?
No, not in particular with that. Just with the whole Max Domi story, it really feels as though listening to him during the off season and seeing the interviews. Now, I haven't really dealt with him much as a player just yet, but it feels like he really belongs in a city like Montreal as opposed to being kind of hidden out in a city like Arizona.
I mean, I think that's a great way to put it. I would probably put it this way. Not everyone can play in places like Toronto or Montreal. He can. I think he was made for this. I think a lot of that is growing up literally in the Leafs dressing room and being assimilated into that culture with his dad being such a big part of those Pac-Win Leaf teams and his dad being a hero really in that city. And he, you just grow up knowing what it's like to be part of that life and that spotlight and that pressure when your old man's doing it. And we kind of joked today, I talked to Max about initially his reaction to becoming a habit. He's like, oh my gosh, he's like, I'm going to wear that jersey. He goes, I remember what that jersey meant when I was watching my dad play. And, but he loves it. He loves the fact that he's going to be part, as he said, of a franchise with so much history where hockey matters. In fact, he was saying that, the Bell Center was always his favorite rink on the road as a visiting player, that he just would get goosebumps walking into the rink and would get so jacked up because of the way that rink and the fans made him feel even as a visiting player. So he says he can't believe that it's going to be his home rink now. I tell you, we'll see how it all works out and plays out. But he's a guy that looks absolutely. He sounds like a guy that feels he's won the lottery by becoming a Montreal Canadian, and I think that's something that the Habs can use these days in terms of having a hard time attracting free agents and stuff like that. Here's a guy who feels like he's the luckiest man alive to be a Montreal Canadian.
Yeah, positive vibe, positive energy. In fact, when we chatted with Ty Domi, Knuckles and I, on this show about the trade and Max playing for the Canadiens, he was very emotional. He said one of his proudest moments was sitting in the stands during the World Hockey Championship when the entire Bell Center, it seemed, was chanting his name, Domi, Domi, Domi.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, for sure. Yeah, and I think, if you believe in the intangibles and the different emotions that help give the player the extra percent that it takes, I think Max is going to dive into that and dig into that this year for sure. And, he said today, he goes, I asked him if he had talked to Claude Julien yet about who he might play with, and he said not really, other than he had spoken to Claude a couple of times, but not specifically about line mates. And he said, listen, he goes, I'm being honest with you here, Pierre. He said, I'll play wing, I'll play center, I'll play right wing, left wing, I'll play D, although that's probably not a good idea, and we know I can't play goal, but I'll do anything they want me to do. So he's just a real infectious attitude and personality that's entering that room right now.
There's no question he's going to be a fan favorite because of the style he plays. We don't know how much he's going to produce in terms of goals. He hasn't the last 2 years. We'll see. He's still in the early stages of his NHL career. And I want to say again, as someone who was a big Alex Galchenyuk fan, I'm more upset about the way that Galchenyuk was developed here for 6 years than I am about the actual trade. Max Domi's a good player. We'll see what happens to Galchenyuk, free of everything here out in the desert, and we'll see what happens in a reverse way for Max Domi. But I'm looking forward to watching him play.
I think that he's going to be a guy that Habs fans will be, will fall in love with, like they do with Brendan Gallagher, like they did with Brendan Gallagher. Different players, different skill sets, but in terms of the way that some players, it comes through the way they care and the way they want to help a team win. I think that'll come through from Domi just like it does with Brendan Gallagher.
Joey?
How do you think his skill set fits in with the current edition of the Canadiens?
Yeah. Listen, this is a team craving for offense. He brings some of that. He's an explosive player skating-wise, and that's where the league is trending. So that's a positive. He does not address their number one need, which is center, even though he can play center. It's a lot like Jonathan Drouin. It's just it's not a natural thing. So he's going to bring offense. He's going to bring a great attitude. But at the end of the day, he is a natural winger, and he's going to be good there. But it's still, again, the same issues that the Canadiens had at center entering the offseason are still there, at least for the current team. Obviously, the draft will help in a few years that way. But, Arpin's piece was terrific this week. I'm sure you guys read it. But, the immediate help down the middle is not there. So we'll be – how many chats am I doing again this year with you, Mitch? How many times are we going to talk about who's playing center? No question.
The biggest thing that struck me is how quickly he makes decisions and how he often seems to know what he's going to do with the puck before he even gets it. It's that's, I think, a skill that's very useful in the NHL and relatable and transferable.
There's Arpin Basu with Connor McKenna, Sean Starr, Rick Moffin this morning on the morning show here on TSN 690. The Athletic sent Arpin to Finland, and he was hanging out with Jesperi Kotkaniemi and his family and his old coaches and Saku Koivu a little bit, and it was a terrific piece that was posted, I think it was yesterday morning on The Athletic.
Yeah, super work there by Arpin. I think that's what we hope to continue to bring at The Athletic. I know this is, kind of plugging my other job here, but I'm just saying, those are it's the kind of sports journalism we don't see a lot anymore, and it's what the Athletic wants to continue to do in terms of the in-depth and the spending money to go to these places, and Arpin absolutely hit it out of the park on that one.
So I'm curious, as you're in the same place as a lot of people, a lot of heavy hitters around the National Hockey League, how much discussion, if there has been at all, about what is going down in Montreal between the Habs and their captain?
Right. Which, by the way, I asked Max Domi about, and he was did not waste a single beat. He hopes that Max Pacioretty isn't going anywhere. He wants to play with Max Pacioretty. That's something he looks forward to, and he hopes that he's not traded. But, it's not as much. I know how big a story I could tell from some of the tweets this summer while I was I pretty much ignored hockey most of the summer, but once in a while I'd check in from the lake. I know that it's been a big story for you guys in your market, but I can tell league-wide that there's way more focus on Erik Karlsson still as a league-wide buzz item than there is on Pacioretty. I think only because of the caliber of the player that we're talking about. And Erik Karlsson's going to change a franchise at some point here, whether it's in the next week or two or in the coming months, whenever Ottawa decides to trade him. So I think when I meet with other people here at this event, I think Karlsson is the top item that I get asked about. But certainly Pacioretty as well. He's going to help the team too if he ends up getting dealt, because I think he's going to, whoever he ends up, if he is dealt, he's going to have quite a chip on his shoulder, and I think you're probably going to see some of Pacioretty's best hockey.
I agree with you. I'm curious what you make, as we wrap it up with Pierre LeBrun, what you personally make of his stance, which he confirmed today at the Jonathan Drouin golf tournament, that he will not negotiate with any team, once the season starts.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's, obviously a tactic where that might help find some resolution here either way in terms of a trade. But I also think that if you're the Montreal Canadiens, all it means is that if you trade him during the season, you just have to make sure that you make part of the package conditional, right? In other words, if you trade Pacioretty during the season and he stands by his stance that he won't sign during the season, that's fine. But if he ends up staying put with that team and with a new contract in the offseason, the Canadiens have to make sure that they have something in there where they get an additional return, which is the only way to deal with that kind of situation.
Right. Well, Pierre, welcome back. Before you go for now, and by the way, you can tell you're in Chicago with all those sirens in the background.
It's unbelievable.
It's nonstop the last couple of minutes. Bill Beacon, as you know, from Canadian Press, worked his last game. It was an Alouettes game a couple of Fridays ago, and there was a bit of a bash for Bill, and it was great hanging out with Herb Zurkowsky and a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long time. And we made arrangements to bring Bill in and tell his story of covering sports in this city and in this country for over 40 years for Canadian Press. He's going to join us at this time tomorrow. He'll be with us between 6 and 7. Have you got a Beacon tale or two to tell?
I've got a million, and some of them I can even share. But I hope that people tune in for that, because Bill Beacon is one of the great under-the-radar superstars, legends of the sports writing industry in our country. And, hasn't got the kind of notoriety that he should have. He was one because, you work at the CP Wire all your life. I was there my first 13 years. You work under the radar and you don't look for fanfare. But I never learned so much from working on Deadline than I did from Bill Beacon. I mean, I think back to the Salt Lake City Olympics. Canada's about to snap its 50-year gold medal drought in men's hockey, and Bill and I are covering it for CP. And Bill's got that 800-word thing written in about 5 minutes, like it's game 41 of the Habs season. Ho-hum. Not a single typo on that screen, and sends it for the whole nation to read. So cool, under pressure. I covered a lot of international hockey with Bill, had a lot of beers with Bill, and he's a dear friend, and the industry is lesser for not having Bill Beacon covering sports in this country, I can tell you that.
Well said, Pierre. Great to hear your voice again. Thanks an awful lot.
All right, we'll talk twice a week, every Thursday and Tuesday, as you like to say, Mitch.
At 6:05 Eastern Time with Pierre LeBrun, who's in. He is I don't know how many floors up, but he is elevated from the mean streets of downtown Chicago.